Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Oh, yeah, we've come a far way, ladies. I heard that voice say, your host, Lynn Cullen, because when I started, itchy allergy eyes. When I started in broadcasting, I was a hostess. And I was a weekend weather girl. Yeah. So I tell you, we're really doing it. Welcome, by the way. It's what is it? It's the 14th of June. Almost halfway through June. I haven't really begun complaining about the hot weather, and before you know it, we'll be complaining about the cold weather. Yiko. So I guess it was just meant to be that the day after my hour-long rant, which constituted yesterday's program, an op-ed should appear, a column, in the New York Times decrying people like me. And this is written by a liberal and a guy I really listen to and respect, Frank Bruni. And I see that Kristen here passed it along to me. And I thank you for that. I had seen it myself because I already highlighted main points that he's making. And I'm going to throw it out to you because I blow both. I don't know that he's wrong. On the other hand, I don't know that he's right. And I mean, yesterday I was filled with a rage. I was filled with rage about what is becoming of our country. And I saw very little hope. And if you survived yesterday's program, you know that. Not a person emailed me during it. Not a person called. So I was left to feel like, as I told Amy, my producer, after the show, I mean, I think everybody just ran screaming from the sound of my voice, because why would anyone want to listen to that depressing rant? And Frank Bruni starts his piece, I think, by jumping on Robert De Niro and his naughty little utterance about the president on the live Tony show, and then the standing ovation he got from that elitist audience. And he said De Niro and Samantha Bee, with her foul mouth thing about the president's daughter, are not helping. They're not helping our cause, which is to get rid of the people who currently hold the power in our country, and to replace those people with people who think more like we do. And Frank Bruni writes, I think quite compellingly, that you don't, to use an old saw, attract You don't attract people by screaming at them. That you have to approach them with a better idea, not just tear down what exists, not to engage in just name calling and all of that. Now, well, and then he really jumped on what I did yesterday, which was, I believe I called ICE the American Gestapo, and I might have invoked some other Hitlerian imagery. And I will read now what Frank Bruni says in today's New York Times. Enough with Hitler, too. Has Trump shown fascistic tendencies? Yes. Is he the second coming of the Third Reich? No. Nor are the spineless Republicans who have enabled him Nazi collaborators, not on the evidence of what has and hasn't happened so far. I'm not urging complacency, he says, but when you invoke the darkest historical analogies, you lose many of the very Americans you're trying to win over. What you're saying isn't what they are seeing. It's overreach in their eyes. I understand what he's saying, but I want to say this. I don't think it's overreach. And when I am talking to you, I am not trying to win anybody over. I know the way it breaks down now that you basically agree with me. So I'm just exhorting the tribe. I am not in winning them over mode. And I frankly have scoffed at winning them over. There is no, and I will scoff at this, there is no winning over his base. I mean, he literally was correct when, during the campaign, he said I could, shoot somebody on Park Avenue and nobody would care. He can do anything, and they will not desert him. But I think Bruni is referring to millions of Americans who, and I know some of these people, who so despised Hillary Clinton or were so angry about Bernie Sanders' treatment by the establishment Democratic Party that they refused to vote for Hillary Clinton and instead voted for, who knows who, Jill Stein or Donald Trump. In fact, I met a young man in Allentown a few weekends ago when I was there who was a Bernie Sanders supporter. And he voted for Trump in the general election. And I guess I didn't try to win him over because I told him, I want to smash your face in. I said, what? And I think that kind of thing happens quite a lot. I think a lot of the Bernie folks refused to vote for Hillary. If we could get those votes back, we would not have Trump in the White House. So, yes, one can, I suppose, talk sense to people like that. But why is it Republicans can engage in the coarsest, most vitriolic language where they can, refuse to even have a hearing for Barack Obama's Supreme Court nominee and act like that's business as usual and perfectly okay? How come they can play not only rough, but sort of cheat? And every time we engage in a behavior that is anything like that, we are immediately shushed, tamped down by our own, by Frank Bruni and so many others. I really don't know, but I really feel it's all-out war at this point. I think you do have to keep in mind that ultimately we've got to win over other voters. So I'm not one. I get very pragmatic then. I'm not one who, for instance, in choosing in a primary election, I don't go necessarily to the farthest left candidate who's running. Not necessarily. I look at the district. I look at who they might be running against, and I try to figure out who can win. That's all I care about now. Who can knock a Republican off in the general election? Oh, I don't know. We have a call. Let me let the caller in. Caller, hello?
Hello. You kind of covered, what I was going to say as I was waiting. Because, it's like in your first paragraph that you read that Bruni wrote, that I was thinking, wait a minute. Don't get down in the muck. Don't use name calling. And how did Trump win? That's exactly how he won. Don't scream? What are you talking about?
Don't denigrate? That's how he won.
Yeah, that's how he won. And sadly to say, it works. That's you kind of covered it. That's like the liberals, they try to be Mr. Intellectuals and all that kind of good stuff. It doesn't work nowadays. It just doesn't. And you said, like I said, who are we going to win over? What Trump supporters are we going to win over? And you mentioned the kid that you ran into, who was a Bernie supporter and ended up voting for Trump. He now knows what the hell can happen if you do that.
Yes, he does.
He did his little spite thing.
Yeah.
Now he knows.
And he's sorry. He is sorry.
It's not
he did.
Yeah. It's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen in the next election.
Yeah.
No matter what happens. Do you want more Trumps? Do you want more, racist senators and, openly racist senators and porn and pimps?
Here's what.
Pimps and hustlers. That's what the Republican Party had turned into.
Yeah. But of course, what Bruni does toward the end of the article is invoke Michelle Obama. When they go, when they go low, we go high. And he said, and we aren't doing that. And then he made this, and I think he's right about this, but I don't think it makes his arguments. Back to De Niro, he says, okay, so you gave De Niro a standing ovation, but never mind that he wrested the spotlight from the Parkland teenagers so that it was his negative message, not their positive one, that was the big story. Never mind that he squandered a chance to model a more dignified bearing than Trump's. He made the blue wave look iffier and Trump stronger. Were you clapping for that? What do you think of that?
I don't even think he's right on his point.
Okay.
He's making a point, and then as liberals we go, interesting. Is that what happened? We'll wait and see. That's all we can do is wait and see.
Well, I do want to say he's right about, he has an understanding of what becomes news. If De Niro had not done that and had not said anything, then the big story out of that Tony show would have been the, it would have been the Parkland teens and their performance. I didn't watch the show at all,
no, neither did I.
Okay.
It was all news to me.
But that would be the news we would be hearing, not Robert De Niro saying, fuck Trump.
Yeah. And, Samantha Bee's use of the C word.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back to when Trump was getting,
Yeah.
running for president.
Yeah.
And all of his insults and bad words, all that stuff that gave him news coverage. You know what I mean? And he won.
And he
all
won.
his negativity, and he won.
And he won.
And that's that. Like I said, the I don't know, Ivy League liberal idea that you sit there and you analyze and contemplate and hypothesize, to figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, you're losing.
Yeah.
Wait till you get in office and do all your hypotheses and stuff like that. It's a new game. With social media and all that kind of good stuff, it's a new game.
I agree with you.
The provocative wins. Yeah.
So, okay, because I have to admit, he got me thinking, oh, God, your vitriol, what is it doing? It's not helping. But it's where I employ it. I mean, if I'm trying to win someone over in a one-on-one session at some social event, I will try to remember that, yes, invoking Hitler might not be the way to do it. Instead, invoking what's happening to the Environmental Protection Agency or to taking children from parents and immigrants.
Yeah.
And I'll avoid, going as far as, doing Nazi Germany, which I do think is an apt, I do really think it is an apt metaphor. And I have said that all you got to do is find one of the few remaining Holocaust survivors that are still alive and ask them if this looks like anything they remember. And to a man and a woman, they say yes. It breaks my heart that they should have to, in their lives, see this happening again in a country that they thought they were safe in.
The people that I know, personally, who voted for Trump, and you might call Trump a racist and all that kind of stuff. And so I said, well, okay, if he isn't a racist, what attracts racists to him? Why is he supported by so many racists and Nazis and skinheads and all that kind of good stuff? What is it about him?
Yeah.
And then I get crickets.
I bet you do. I bet
I
you
get
do.
crickets. So, and I fall short of saying, because I understand, with my, ivory tower, intellectual way of thinking, that there's implicit bias. You know what I mean? Implicit racism. The people who are racist don't even realize that they're racist. You know? And that's what I think a lot of these people are. They have no idea that they're racist.
True.
You can point it out to them left and right, and they're never going to accept it.
Right.
So they'll never be able to get over it because they don't believe that they're racist. And you get crickets. I lost a couple friends by bringing that up to them.
Well,
I should say friends, people that I know.
These are the times, prior to the Civil War, people lost friends, families split. And as historians, like Beschloss, who I was talking about yesterday, warn us that we are in as equally fraught a time, that we are in danger of our country literally splitting apart, and it's splitting along the same ideological seismic lines that it did in 1861. And racism is very much a part of it.
Yeah. I always say otherism now, because it was about slavery and blacks back then, but now it's about LGBT communities,
immigrants,
for goodness sake,
brown
immigrants,
people.
Yeah.
It's always the way.
It's
The Republicans have trafficked in this kind of crap, pretty much since I can remember. Always culling some group, some marginalized minority group from the herd, and energizing their voters by saying it is those people who are responsible for either making you less safe or taking your job or whatever. But they scapegoat and demonize. And I remember telling gays when they sort of replaced blacks for one election cycle as the scapegoat group, I said, well, welcome. You now get to be the wedge issue. That's what it's called, right? The wedge issue.
The
that
wedge issue.
which divides. Well,
Yeah.
I had it up to here and then some with it. So, well, thank you for bucking me up. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Every once in a while, you have to turn off your intellectualism and
yeah.
Like I said, if they go low, hit them with an uppercut.
Thank you for that pugilistic advice. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Bye. Yeah, Kristen, who sent me the Bruni article, said, while I might agree in premise with it, I am just weary and tired of the if they go low, we go high. I am weary and tired of it all. It's getting to the point where I'm ready to buy my own private island. Yeah, I think we're all there. And Roger says, regarding Bruni, I understand that people tune out when you scream and won't listen to you with an open mind. But our current jerk-in-chief sure certainly attracted a lot of people by screaming. Yeah, even before he was president, and being vulgar and name-calling and all the stuff that we're now not supposed to do. Roger goes on, talking with friends the other night, everybody present, even the women, said Trump will win again unless Democrats have a pretty non-threatening, pretty white guy up against him. I don't know about that. I don't know. I know where my strengths are and my weaknesses, and I don't necessarily know that I know who the better candidate is in terms of winning. I don't know if I read the Times right all the time. Obviously, people who get paid big bucks to do just that, they don't know either a lot of the time. The pundits, I don't think often they know any more than I do, but I at least know I don't know. So in this huge mass of people who may be the person who's going to run against Trump, I couldn't tell you in a million years who that person should be. It could be we could run, Wile E. Coyote and win. I mean, I don't know. Or it could be that it's going to be a tight election. I don't know. All I know is it is a battle for the very soul of our nation, and it is a battle for our nation. I've never felt anything more certainly than that. I have no doubt about that. Another caller is joining us. Hello.
Hi, good morning, Lynn.
Hi.
And accommodations to Clarence for his very cogent, insightful commentary.
Yes. Yes.
Which I'm in full agreement with. First of all, it's not low to call those out who make it obvious with just brazen behavior that they are racist or are pandering to racists at the very least, that they disregard the rule of law, they have no respect for norms and traditions in government, and they're perfectly willing to go to all sorts of ends, unethical or potentially unconstitutional, to remain in power while becoming a minority party. They're a party that minority party in the sense that they don't win the popular vote in national elections.
No, and haven't for
their senators represent
some time. Right.
Far fewer Americans.
Right.
Their policies are unpopular, but they're intent on staying in power in government anyway. I mean, you and Clarence were discussing how we're fracturing along the same lines as in the pre-Civil War, and obviously we're not going to have that event because it's not along geographic lines in this case. But the right wingers like to point out that Donald Trump won 2,200 counties as opposed to Hillary Clinton's 600. What they don't want to recognize
is those are counties full of cows. I know.
Yeah, the 600 counties are where 63% of Americans live.
Duh.
They're the counties that account for the majority of GDP. They have all the best universities. They have all the best hospitals.
Right.
They have all the best airports in the United States, such as they are. I mean, they're where everything is happening. I mean, I don't want to look, and currently I'm not living in a large city, which I hope to be a temporary, or even near one. I hope that to be a temporary, a very temporary situation. However, those are the counties. What's the Civil War going to be?
Well, the Civil War will be between urban America and rural America, and ex-urban America. I mean, if you were to talk geographically, that's what it'll be.
Yeah, and unfortunately, urban America is what's driving this nation. I'm not, yes, there are farms and factories and warehouses. I'm not discounting that. But my God, if you're going to go, for example, even in Illinois. Illinois isn't a blue state. Chicago is blue.
Right. Right.
New York State. New York State isn't blue.
No.
New York City is blue.
Right. This is all correct. And that's where the people are. I mean, we're talking where the people are, not where there's acreage. The Republicans represent a lot more acreage than they do people. And with Democrats, we don't have a lot of acreage, but we've got the people. And it works against us, obviously, in the way our government is set up, because every state gets 2 senators, so a little tiny state will get 2, and a huge state will get 2. And in the House, look at the House delegation from Pennsylvania. I mean, it's overwhelmingly Republican, even though this state is not overwhelmingly Republican.
And then the other factor, the big factor that's just, killing honest political discourse in this country and real accounting for actions in this country is that the media is cowed. I mean, a lot of the media has been, commercialized. I mean, certainly that's been an ongoing theme of your show recently, with multi-millionaire, even billionaire owners willing to lose money in order to advance an agenda. But then the other is that a lot of the so-called liberal media is just cowed. They won't call obvious, even corruption out.
I know.
Because they're afraid of being attacked.
Right. And well, you know what?
John Stewart nailed it when he said, in relation to Samantha Bee's use of the word cunt, that the right wing has they police standards that they would never adhere to, and it's all faux outrage on their part.
Right. Faux outrage, yes, right, exactly. But it's a cudgel. It can be used. It's a weapon, and they love weaponizing anything that they can. Hey, I've got to go because I've got other callers that are stacking up here. But I thank you.
Touch the nerve. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Yeah, you don't call me at all. Yesterday, now. Hello, caller.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Hey, what I wanted to talk about a little bit, I saw something on the internet. Well, it was a story on all the about a Polish woman who was a teacher. I think she must have been a survivor of the Holocaust or something.
Uh-huh.
Did you see that?
No, I did not.
We got an award anyway. So I started looking up some stuff, and I was amazed at the staggering numbers of Polish people that died during the Holocaust. I mean, anywhere from 3 to 5 million, which the history books gloss over. If you look it up, and you'll see. And there was, they have a total of 11 million. And some were Polish Jews, Polish Christians, but I don't know what the real number is, but it's quite a bit. But it seems like they don't talk about that much. It's like kind of like these school shootings where if it's a mass number of certain people, then you know what I mean. They don't focus on the amount of people died. Not to say it was a terrible thing. I agree 100% terrible. But I was shocked because I knew there was some Polish people that died, but being Polish, I thought, wow, I didn't realize that many Polish people died during that. It was a lot. It wasn't like 10,000 it was millions.
Right.
Is what I was reading.
Well,
I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to tell you, the final solution in terms of wiping out Jews was actually most successful in Poland. That was the largest Jewish population in Europe. It was absolutely wiped out. The killing fields in Poland were extraordinary. I must say, though, that even after the war, the few Jews that straggled back sometimes were killed after the war. There are horrific stories of what happened to survivors who came back and were blamed for somehow bringing it all down on every. That war was maybe the most horrific. The fact that people are already forgetting it and the lessons from it is just astonishing to me. But
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, Poland took
reminds you how terrible people were. You know what I mean? Just how, I mean, not to say they're not terrible now, but my gosh, that was horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let us remember, it was people just like us, because that was Europe, for heaven's sakes, where all of our Western culture practically came from, and it was these were sophisticated, educated people. And so that's why when people say, well, that can't happen here, they're out of their minds. It happened there, and what was the difference? What was the difference?
Right.
Thank you. Appreciate the call.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye. Milton. Milton is right on it. He knows exactly what story, and he just sent it to me. I can't share it all with you, but he says it is a story of an American teacher who, together with his students, shed light on the story of a Polish woman who saved hundreds of Jewish children during the Holocaust, Irina Sendler. And I'm sure, having recently been to Israel and to Israel's Yad Vashem, which is their memorial to the Jews killed in the Holocaust, that as you enter it, there are trees, beautiful trees lining this roadway, and each tree represents a person like this woman. And there is a plaque and a story of someone who was not a Jew, who risked their lives, often lost their lives, trying to save Jews at the time. And, you know, Schindler, I guess, is the one that's most recognized. Raoul Wallenberg, another recognized. But there are all these stories of regular people, and a lot of women who exhibited such extraordinary courage that it makes you, I mean, I have no idea if I would be capable of that kind of bravery. I don't think anybody would know. I don't think any of us could answer. I know we would like to think we would be, but if you think about the fact, imagine that you were willing to sacrifice your own life for strangers. You were willing to sacrifice perhaps your own family's life, because if you got caught, the Nazis didn't just take you out. They would take your family. And I don't know a lot of people who would take a risk like that. They are exceptional, truly exceptional. So this is one more, and I'll look forward to reading about her. These stories are always just, they humble the hell out of you. And they make you ask yourself uncomfortable questions. I came across, and I just want to get this in for sure today, as I did not know about this book. It got a big review in the New York Times today. It's a book that's called Amity and Prosperity. And of course, as I said yesterday, it has a subtitle, because you can't have a book anymore unless it has a subtitle. So the title of the book is Amity and Prosperity. The subtitle is, let me find it, One Family and the Fracturing of America. Okay. It turns out that this is a story about Amity, Pennsylvania, which is right over here, folks. I'm always pointing this way, but it seems like that is where everything is. Amity, Pennsylvania, in adjoining Washington County, and Prosperity is also a town in. I had a friend who lived in Amity. I used to go there quite often. Wonderful little town. And so this is a book about places that are right here in southwestern Pennsylvania, and written by a woman who moved there maybe about 15 years ago, and watched as, ironically, a small community called Amity, which, bespeaks amicable and everybody getting along together, Amity, that a city with that name was literally riven because people took different positions on fracking. And my understanding of the story from just reading it's something that you might want to read. The Times gives it pretty much a rave review. And she does the story by focusing on one family, pretty much. A single mother, a nurse, who, when Range Resources came calling in 2008, signed up, said, "Oh yeah, I could use the help." She was raising children, and they were willing to lease. They wanted to lease her land. They wanted to lease the mineral rights to the land that her house stood on, and that would give her money to raise her children. So she said yes, like so many other people said yes. And then it's the story of what happened to her and to her children and to her community and to her family. And it's not a pretty story. It's a story we've heard before, but it talks about the first thing she sees is her old farmhouse just disappearing under a layer of dust and a cracked foundation almost, within weeks. A cracked foundation that occurs because of Range Rover's Range Rovers, well, maybe. Range Resources, Range Rovers, they're big trucks rumbling by her farmhouse and eventually cracking the foundation. And then the health problems start in: runny noses, watery eyes, headaches, mouth ulcers, a horrible smell that she couldn't get rid of from the wastewater. And her teenage son literally became so ill that he couldn't go to school, that there was arsenic for some reason in his urine. Their farm animals, their neighbors' farm animals, began dying, bleeding horrifically to death, having seizures. And she sued, along with some other people, Range Resources. And she ended up having to, I think, first sue the state because the Environmental Protection Department of Environmental Protection wouldn't do their job. They wouldn't help them. And the Times Review says that what it shows is the fact that the Pennsylvania government had been starved of funding, and consequently the environmental department that was supposed to be making sure Range Resources didn't do the very thing that was happening, that they didn't have the staff or the ability to really do battle. So the review says, Range Resources doesn't look good in this book, but at least, finding out that some corporation is bent on maximizing its profits over people is not anything we're going to be like dumbstruck by. That's a reality we know all too well. But she says the failure of Pennsylvania's government to regulate the company and to protect the people is the most dispiriting part of this account. So I gotta tell you, this is a book you might want to read, Amity and Prosperity. And she said the community didn't rise to help the people that were badly affected, and instead what developed is this widening gap between the people who were helped by Range Resources coming to town and people who were harmed. And the review also points out that in this region that voted for Trump, where coal miner and steel worker unions used to provide a sense of solidarity for the people who lived there, now the ascendancy of mineral rights and leases, which is a privately owned, it's a private transaction between residents and the corporation, and that ended up pitting neighbor against neighbor. And the review ends with a quote from the nurse, the mother, about what punishment she would like Range Resources to receive, not that they'll receive any. She says, if I had my choice, I wouldn't send them to jail. I'd send them to my house to live. Amity and Prosperity. There was a piece in the there was a piece in the Wall Street Journal yesterday that blew my mind. One of the ways that I've helped myself deal with the stress of living in these times in Donald Trump's America is that I found that meditation was a good idea. And so I'm still struggling to be in the habit of it, to, literally do it every day. When my life sort of takes off, as it has in the last few weeks, I forget to do it. And I really want to commit to doing it. There was an article yesterday on the front page of the Wall Street Journal about how a lot of Americans are turning to meditation. And that they mostly go to these apps, which you can have on your phone. And that's, in fact, what I do. The two biggest apps are one called Headspace, which is my app, and another called Calm, I believe. And what the apps do is every time you do remember to meditate and you go back to your app, it says, how many days you've done in a row. And I keep screwing up. I mean, for a while there, I had, like 25 days in a row. And now I'm, I do one here. I just forget. I do. And the article is about something I feel would only happen in our culture. A culture that is based on competition, on everything being competitive. It's why in some respects I recoil from making things like music competitive or dance competitive. Things that you just want to enjoy. Why make it winners and losers? And that's our culture. All the reality shows are about that. Winners and losers. And the thing is about winning and losing is mostly you end up with losers, right? There's only one winner. And that's really a definition ultimately of capitalism. It's what monopoly teaches anybody who's played the game, is that finally people keep losing, and then one person comes out on top. I hate what it does to us and our sense of what's a proper way to live with others. Everything's a competition. I'm incapable of ranking things. I've always said I think that's a very masculine thing, but it's also, all right, who are your favorite what are your top 10 movies? What are your top 10 songs? What are your top 10, and I think, I don't know. I enjoy, there's so many. Why should I rank them? Why does someone have to be on top all the time? But so anyway, the article was about how in America, increasingly, people are engaging in essentially competitive meditation. Now, I got to tell you, that is such an oxymoron. The whole idea of meditation is to let all that kind of crap go, to get yourself in the present and focusing on the narrowest kind of thing. It would not ever involve competition. But it talks about these people who now, they're practically cheating, making sure that they don't lose seeing who can go the longest without any. And there's boards where you can look and see where you stand against other people in your meditation, in your adherence to it. And I get it was just another instance of how I just think we have a toxic culture, how it just ruins everything. Everything has to be competitive for us to pay attention to it. Everything. Survival of the fittest. Last man standing. Everyone for themselves. And I don't like that world. Unfortunately, I'm in it, but I don't like it. Yes, Mark, and before though, this reminds me of something, because I taped a show last night, a radio show, that will be on Saturday at 1 o'clock, and I want to alert you to it. And actually, one of the it's on a station that a show that plays oldies. And I was asked by the host prior to us taping the show last night to come up with a list of like my 4 favorite songs from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I thought, no, I can't. And so I finally just said, okay, I'll make a list of some songs I liked. And I sent him much more than he asked for. I said, you pick them. I could pick thousands. So anyway, we taped the show last night, and I thought it was this guy is good. He put a really good hour together, and it's mostly an interview of me and mostly political. And I must say it's rather clear that he, first of all, he listens to the show. And I really enjoyed it. And the fact he slipped the music in just the right way. So I want to give you a heads up. It's on FM 88.3, the Jay Thurber Show. I would listen to that hour. I mean, I'm not going to because I did it, but I think, and I want to alert you to this guy. He does a show every Saturday from noon to 3 at 88.3 Oldies. He was a big fan of Doug Hertz, who of course was the oldie king in town and beyond, and he's good. He's very, very good at his job. That was good old-fashioned radio in every way. 88.3, 1 o'clock on Saturday. Okay? I want to introduce you to this guy. He's good. And Mark is reminding me of, yes, Mark, thank you, because this is, we know Donald Trump has an allergy to telling the truth. He just can't. He goes through his life lying, just constantly lying. But this made its way into, I guess, one interview he did. Well, the fact is, Trump has said that during the campaign, he was approached by many parents of American soldiers who had died in Korea. And he said more than once he was approached by them and asked if there was any way he could use his powers to get their remains repatriated, brought home. And somebody, I guess it came up again because he was in Korea. I mean, no, he was talking to the Koreans. Here's the problem with that story that he's told about parents of Korean vets coming up to him and saying, please bring my boy's body home. The average age of Korean veterans now is 87 years old. Their parents? Their parents would be 110 generally. I mean, we're averaging things out here. And the fact that, again, that didn't happen, wouldn't have happened if maybe a 101-year-old had toddled up to him at a rally and said that maybe once, maybe, I doubt it, but whatever. And he just lies. One of the things that a lot of people took some refuge in as a distraction from life in America today, that was a K, was the St. Paul raccoon odyssey. Did you see that? I mean, I guess if you're not on Twitter or social media, you don't know these things, or do you? Does network news eventually pick it up? Probably, because they've gone so soft. But it was a story of, I mean, a lot of people literally watched for over, about 36 hours or more, this one raccoon scaling a 25-story building, is crawling up the outside of the UBS tower in St. Paul, 25 stories. And I did not take part in the raccoon watch, but I do know that an awful lot of people did. And so it made the story about it made the New York Times today. And this is the first time I knew as much about it. In the Times story, I learned that, it's perfectly normal to see a raccoon scale the outside of a building 20 feet, 30 feet. As a matter of fact, the first time I saw that, it was at a house I was renting on Howe Street in Shadyside, and I had taken my garbage out, and I saw this raccoon making his way up the side of the house I was renting, and I was stunned. I didn't know they could crawl up, because he was up to like the second or third story. It was 3 stories. It's one of those skinny, tall houses, and he had a TV dinner tray in his in his mouth. I guess it must have been, because he was going like this. And I laughed so hard. I wasn't laughing later when weeks later, when I realized he and I guess his family were living in the house, because I began hearing them, all the time at night. Anyway, so yes, they do that. But this one expert, a biology professor, is quoted in the article as saying, but a 25-story building, that is extraordinary. So this raccoon was first spotted, and then people started, it became a viral sensation. And I guess he got within 2 stories of the top of the roof. And wildlife officers had baited a trap up there with cat food and other stinky, wondrous stuff that they hoped would lure him. But at the 23rd floor, he stopped on a ledge, on a window ledge. 2 stories from the top, 23 stories up. And he curled up and went to sleep. I mean, he was exhausted. And then, when he woke up, incredibly, he started going down. He was just 2 stories from the top. He started going down. And he made it all the way down to the 17th floor before, again, he stopped on a ledge. And they don't know what turned him around again. They said maybe he just saw that it was a quicker thing to go up than down. Or maybe he saw the huge crowds and television cameras that awaited him on the descent. But he decided to reverse course and go up. And around 2 a.m. yesterday, the raccoon cleared the 25th floor and landed on the roof and made a beeline for the cat food and was trapped. And wildlife officers did, obviously let him eat and sleep a little bit. And then they said it was a very skinny raccoon. I can see a picture of him. Yeah, it's a her, actually. It turned out to be a female. And she was in otherwise good health. And they took her to an undisclosed location somewhere where she'd be happier and released her. That's what they say. They damn well better not have put a bullet in her head. Whatever. But so that's the raccoon story. And I guess it gave a lot of people some solace in these times. And quickly, and then we got to leave you. Barbara wrote, my Uncle Albert served. I hear Uncle Albert and all I think of is the Beatles. Uncle Albert. Okay. My Uncle Albert served in the Korean War. He was the youngest of 9 children, all of them gone, all deceased. 4 of his brothers served in World War II. His mother was born in 1888. I hope Trump did talk to her. She was an immigrant, and she was an amazing woman. Okay. Rocky Raccoon. That's a Beatle thing, too. I don't know. I got the Beatles in my head, probably because I was doing an oldies show, taping an oldies show last night. Remember that. It's great. So anyway, yeah, we got tomorrow together, and I'll look forward to it. Enjoy the nice weather while you can. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.